I don't think I should be in swim shorts for this moment. Excited to get to chat with you for this film. I got to catch it at South by, and what a wild ride you have put together for this film. So I wanted to expound on something that you mentioned at the Q&A, which was some of the research that you did to sort of put this film together. I'd love to hear what it was like, going down that rabbit hole, so to speak, and learning about these unknown knowns about unicorns, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, stop me at some point because this can get boring fast. But the whole movie started as a rabbit hole exploration. The first idea for the movie was just the opening scene about a father and daughter hitting a unicorn with their car in the middle of an otherwise banal kind of conversation. And I didn't really know anything about unicorns. I was never really interested in unicorns. But that kind of, sometimes you get an idea in your head and it kind of like just sticks out and you kind of, can't stop running your brain over it and thinking about it more. And so that then led me to kind of start asking myself questions about what are unicorns and what are our associations with them? What's the mythology actually based on? And what I found that was interesting, I think, is that we have I think, a very intuitive understanding of unicorns just from like passive consumption. It kind of just like through osmosis ends up in our brain because unicorn mythology hasn't really changed in like 2,400 years, which is kind of insane. The first written account of a unicorn was in 398 BC. And obviously we're still telling unicorn stories now and still know about unicorns. And Jorge Luis Borges has a really interesting quote about unicorns that he wrote in his book of imaginary beings. And what he said was the first unicorn story is almost identical to the latest, which is basically true, which is very odd. Like there's not a lot of mythological creatures from antiquity that we kind of haven't changed, over the course of 2,400 years. And so it presented a fun opportunity to kind of dig into that research as a means of subverting our expectations about what a unicorn is, but also satisfying them in unexpected ways.
So with all, going down that rabbit hole, how did you go? I love that the film doesn't overburden the audience, so to speak, with a bunch of mythology and a bunch of lore, but gives us just enough to sort of understand, the nature of them and why they're important to this plot. What was it like balancing the sort of dysfunctional family story, the eat the rich story, along with some of that unicorn mythology throughout this writing?
Yeah, it was a tricky balance to find. When I found the tapestries, I got very excited about them as like a meta text to kind of like, or a meta, like a spine to kind of thread through the movie that, it says a lot and hopefully not that much screen time, but then we get to keep seeing it and keep being reminded of what they represent. It's tricky because in this movie, you don't want to have a character like in so many monster movies. You're like, there's one character who's encountered the monster before, and they know all about it and they're going to tell everybody. And I didn't want to have that because it kind of ran counter to what the very fundamental nature of the movie was. Like, no one knows what they're dealing with. They're dealing with something unknown to all of mankind, not just to them. It'd be weird for one person to be like, actually, I've met this unicorn before, and let me tell you about what their deal is. So, I think it became a question of, how much is enough, how much is too much. And that was something we were certainly calibrating throughout the edit. And also, making sure it kind of led you into the genre of the movie. And that was something where, we created this lost tapestry in the movie that was kind of an embellishment of, the true maiden tapestry from the Unicorn Tapestries is tattered. It is only a partial tapestry. They don't know what the rest of it was, but we kind of expanded that and said, what if the rest of that missing tapestry kind of foreshadowed the plot of our movie. So that was a fun way to kind of, the tapestries were informing the story, and that was a fun way for the stories to kind of then retroactively inform the tapestries. But yeah, in terms of balancing it with the rest of the movie, that's just a challenge of every script, every story has its own challenges, and that was just one of them, of making sure that that's there and it feels like we're giving the unicorns a real sense of specificity and mythology. But at the same time, you don't want to look at a character who's like buried in a book or representing research over and over again.
Well, again, I think you struck that balance really well because I appreciated that it wasn't exposition heavy for them and that we got to sort of gradually learn along with the characters and then just also have fun with it all. I mean, even though it's in the title, we got to talk about the human characters as well in this film because they all have very important parts to play. I'd love to hear what it was like finding Paul and Jenna to play Elliot and Ridley because they have such a great dynamic just from that opening scene, which they were telling me was pretty much the first scene that they also filmed together.
Yeah, that was the way the schedule worked out for, various reasons of sets being available and so forth. But I mean, Paul and Jenna were, I don't know, I feel like I got struck by lightning twice in a row that they both ended up being in this movie playing, the two leads at the center of it. Getting them on the movie was Paul and I had met and spoken about doing another film before that I had written and I wasn't directing, and he was interested in. And when we met, that was so long ago now, but when we met, he asked me if I ever wrote for specific actors, and I think my answer, or maybe a good answer to say, even if it wasn't actually my answer, was not yet. But I kind of took that as an invitation to write him something. So he was always the person I had in mind for Elliot. When that started, I wasn't yet familiar with Jenna, but I sort of wrote Ridley to kind of be what the movie needed it to be, which is a lot. It's a kind of tough role in terms of delivering exposition, kind of holding the emotional center of the movie, needing to be this kind of, not quite the straight man in the ensemble, but certainly the person who's reminding us of the stakes. And honestly, when I finished writing it and I got to a place where we started casting the movie, I was like, holy shit, who can do this? I don't know if this is a really hard role. There's a lot that the role needs to do. Right around then I'd first seen X and had, I think we sent this to Jenna like the weekend before Wednesday came out. And we're just like, all right, everyone's saying she's great in this series. I've seen her do I started watching all of her other movies before that. Like after I saw X, I was like, wait, let me go back and study what she's been up to. And she's just such an incredible performer. She's awesome and so lucky that she wanted to do this, found the time to do it. I mean, Paul as well, obviously. In terms of casting, I feel very fortunate that they both wanted to do it. They just bring so much pathos and comedy and natural warmth. Paul does a lot of unlikable things in the movie, and I think if it was anyone but Paul, that would be a much harder road to hoe for the audience. But I think Paul's natural likability, that sort of became a fun part of it, was like, how do we weaponize his likability? Is make him do unlikable things over and over.
I really like that you had that in mind because that was something I was often thinking about, was like, man, Elliot, stop making these choices. But Paul, I love you so much. I'll still follow you. So I love that was in your head.
Paul and I talked a little bit about Force Majeure, which is a favorite movie of mine, where, that character is just making like all the wrong choices over and over and over again. And we're like, all right, we're not going to go that far, but what's like our version of someone who just keeps making bad decisions until hopefully they make one right decision by the end of the movie?
What exactly are we saying this is, though?
I think we know exactly what it is.